I never thought a job could pay this much and still feel like stepping into a nightmare. $30 an hour, they said. That's insane for a lonely night shift at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. But desperate times, desperate measures. My Civic's tires crunched across the gravel lot as I pulled into the station. The neon coyote flickered weakly, like it was gasping against the darkness. Highway 160 stretched endlessly behind me, cutting through the Navajo Nation like a vein of black silk. Red rocks rose in the distance, shadowed and ominous under a crescent moon. I killed the engine and let the quiet press in, the air thick with dust and gasoline. August in Arizona never cools. It just becomes slightly less oppressive after sunset. My phone buzzed. A lifeline in this empty desert. Danny, my little brother. Rehab was finally doing him good, and I needed to keep my head straight. "You at work yet?" he asked. "Just got here," I replied, trying to sound normal. There's a strange peace in the night before the first customer arrives, like the world is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Out here, in the middle of nowhere, that sense of waiting feels alive, like the darkness itself has weight. I stepped out, backpack slung over my shoulder, and made my way to the door. The bell jingled weakly, almost apologetically. Inside, the air smelled of stale coffee, dust, and something metallic I couldn't place. The floor's linoleum was worn thin, and the shelves were stocked with jerky, energy drinks, and candies that had been there long enough to have their own stories. A dusty boombox sat on the counter, playing classic rock, low enough to be background noise, more texture than music. "Must be Miguel," a voice called from the back room. Hank Yazy, the owner, emerged. He looked like the voice sounded, weathered, serious, with eyes that had stared at too many harsh suns. "Call me Miggs," I said, offering my hand. His grip was firm, dry, and cold. He gestured at the station. "Welcome to Coyote Fuel and Go. Not much to look at, but it pays the bills." The way he said it made me uneasy, like the words themselves were carrying weight. Night shifts weren't for everyone. Hank's tone implied that his previous employees didn't last long. He led me behind the counter, showing me the layout. The booth was bulletproof, glass webbed with fine cracks, cramped with a stool, desk fan, and register. The doors lock automatically at 10 p.m. And after that, all transactions go through the drawer. Security cameras covered the pumps, and a panic button summoned tribal police 40 minutes away. "Don't panic," he said. I knew instinctively not to. Then he told me about the rules. The first one: Never sell jerky, tobacco, or Slim Jims to anyone with yellow eyes. I laughed, expecting a joke, but he didn't. The second, if the pumps start leaking black fluid, lock the doors and play track 3 on that boombox. A chant, a Navajo prayer. He waved away my questions. The third and most important, never answer the payphone mounted near the bathrooms. It shouldn't work. I nodded, repeating them in my head like a prayer. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., things could get strange, he warned. Just follow the rules, he said. Then he was gone, and I was left alone. The first hours passed uneventfully. 2 customers, tops. A local woman buying cigarettes, a college kid filling his tank. Nothing strange, but at 1:30 a.m., the bell jingled. A trucker stepped in, built like a refrigerator, tattoos coiling up his arms. He moved stiffly, mechanically, and for a split second, his shadow sprouted what looked like antlers. I blinked. It was normal again. The air smelled of wet fur and burnt metal. He left without incident, but I couldn't shake the unease. Hank had said things get strange. Maybe I was starting to understand. Later, a woman entered. Her white sundress floated unnaturally as she glided toward the jerky display. She smelled of perfume and decay. Her eyes shifted, yellowing. Her teeth too sharp, too many. "I'm sorry," I said, mouth dry. "Out of jerky." She hissed something about starving them, then disappeared. The pumps stood silent outside. My heart raced. Sleep deprivation, I told myself. But I had seen too much already to dismiss it. Counting the register, I found a Polaroid tucked beneath a tray. Hank Younger, beside a tall, wrong humanoid figure, captioned, "Feeding time, 1999. By 2:33 a.m., the first signs of the unnatural appeared. The payphone rang. The static was thick, invasive. A voice, old, drowned in water, whispered things I couldn't understand. It knew things only Danny and I shared. It warned. It threatened. I slammed the receiver down. Rings continued. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the concrete outside. The desert remembered, my grandmother had said, every footprint, every secret, whispered to its sands. 3 a.m., 3:17 a.m., I paced. The air in the booth pressed against me, thick and insistent. The night stretched like a living thing, bending around the pumps. My phone died despite being charged. Every familiar noise became alien. The black liquid seeped from pump 4, writhing like a living thing. I remembered Hank's chant on track 3. I pressed play. The chant rolled through the store, low and urgent. The black fluid retreated, pulsing back into the pump, almost obedient. Silence followed, expectant and suffocating. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Each sound, ice machine, refrigerator, distant wind, set my nerves taut. Dawn arrived like salvation. Hank returned, casual as ever. I didn't tell him anything. Instead, I handed him the Polaroid. "Old Halloween photo," he said. "Just a joke." He handed me a $100 first night bonus. Money felt like a bribe. I pocketed it. My gaze drifted toward the desert. I had survived the first night, but the rules weren't precautions. They were expectations. I drove home, searching Skinwalker Navajo legends. Shapeshifters, animal forms, mimicking voices, hunting in isolated places. Places like Coyote Fuel and Go. I had no answers, only fear. I was just passing through, collecting a paycheck. At least that's what I told myself. The desert remembers, my grandmother's voice echoed. But I wasn't part of it, not yet, just a visitor. The next night, I arrived earlier, hoping to steel myself for what lay ahead. The desert sky was a canvas of bruised purple and black, streaked with clouds that moved too fast for natural wind. My tires crunched across the gravel again. But this time, I noticed something I hadn't before. Faint tracks, photoed, leading from the desert right up to the pumps. No tire marks, no footprints in the dirt. Just these strange animalistic tracks. I paused, my pulse jumping. Couldn't be anything ordinary. Not in this place. Not according to what Hank had told me. Inside, the air was colder than the night outside. The fan whirred weakly, rattling in protest as if warning me. I checked the cameras. All pumps were empty. No cars. No trucks. No signs of life. I shouldn't have been uneasy yet. This was only the start of the shift. But the hairs on the back of my neck refused to settle. I poured coffee, tried to drink it, but it tasted of metal and ash. The boombox sat silently, nothing playing. I hesitated before plugging it in. Track 3, Hank's chant. The moment I pressed play, I froze. Outside, the air shivered, as though the desert itself held its breath. Shadows moved unnaturally, stretching toward the building. Then I saw it, a figure at pump 4. Too tall, elongated limbs, almost skeletal, crouching and still. Its head jerked unnaturally toward me. Yellow eyes gleamed. I swallowed hard, remembering the first rule: never sell to them. My voice was a whisper, not jerky, but it didn't speak, didn't move, just waited. Waiting, I realized, was part of the terror. The payphone rang again. I ignored it. The shrill static crawled into my skull, whispering things only I could understand. Secrets, names, memories, things no one else should know. It called me by name, laughing in the hollow tones of dry bones. My hands shook, but I didn't pick it up. I couldn't. Hank's warning echoed. Never answer. I backed away, pressing my forehead to the cool glass of the booth. The figure outside twitched. Its mouth opened, too wide, too sharp. A sound escaped, a hiss that wasn't quite human. I gagged, the smell of sulfur and rotting meat invading my senses. Then, suddenly, it disappeared. 1 second, it was there. The next, nothing. The tracks outside had changed, now leading toward the desert again, deeper into the black. I dared not look too long. My heart still racing, I pressed play on track 3, chanting along with the recording. The air shifted, calm, tense, but calm. The black fluid appeared again at pump 4, writhing like a snake. I hadn't touched anything. It retreated. Silence swallowed the lot. Hours crawled by. I checked the cameras obsessively. Shadows in the distance, darting between pumps, always avoiding the cameras. Figures I could never fully identify. Voices, children laughing, adults shouting, echoed in the desert. Nothing visible. I kept my head down, counting minutes, waiting for dawn. Every sound made me jump. The ice machine rattling, the soda fridge humming, the distant thump of something falling in the gravel. 3 a.m. brought the worst. A truck pulled into the lot, headlights blinding through the glass. The engine died. A man stepped out. Or at least, I thought he was a man. His movements were too stiff, too jerky. Yellow eyes glowed beneath a hood. The smell of decay was immediate, overpowering. I remembered the second rule. If they approached, play track 3. I reached for the boombox, hands trembling. Before I could press play, it spoke, in my brother's voice. Danny. Laughing, taunting. I froze. No way he could be here. No way. My blood ran cold. The figure crouched, mimicking him perfectly. Every inflection, every syllable. Miggs, remember me? The voice whispered. I stumbled back, barely gripping the counter. The figure lunged. But instead of physical contact, the air itself struck me. My vision blurred. Memories not my own, terrifying memories, flooded me. Skinwalker, I realized. It feeds on fear, takes form from what it knows best. It knows my brother, my family. I hit play on track 3. The chant rolled like thunder through the station. The figure shrieked, human-like in agony, and retreated, melting into the night. Outside, the black liquid swirled, then retreated back into pump 4. Silence returned. My hands were shaking violently. I realized, finally, that these creatures weren't just outside. They were everywhere, waiting, watching. By 4 a.m., the night shifted again. Shadows receded, the desert returning to its empty, eerie stillness. My phone finally powered on, buzzing with missed calls and texts from Danny. I ignored them. Nothing mattered except survival. I counted down the minutes until 5 a.m., the night's end, the blessed sunrise. When Hank arrived, I didn't speak. He noticed the tremor in my hands, but said nothing. Just nodded, handing me another bonus. Not everyone lasts the first week, he said casually. His eyes were unreadable. I nodded, clutching my coffee. The desert beyond the lot looked normal in daylight, almost inviting. But I knew the truth. It only sleeps in sunlight. The creatures, the shadows, the whispers, they didn't die. They waited. That night changed me. Sleep was impossible. My mind replaying every hiss, every whispered call. I researched skinwalkers obsessively, studying Navajo legends, tribal warnings, everything. Each story hinted at the same thing. They hunt where isolation is total, where human rules do not matter. Coyote Fuel and Go sits in that place. The desert remembers every trespass, every whispered fear, and it responds. I began noticing patterns. The black liquid always appeared at pump 4. The payphone rings between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., always calling the same way. Track 3 works every time, though each use leaves me exhausted, almost hollow. Shadows mimic voices, footsteps, friends, family. They test you. They push you toward breaking the rules. And if you break them, well, I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I answered the payphone, just for a second. The voice on the line laughed, cold and triumphant, speaking in a language that made my stomach turn. Words like meet, hunt, feed. The line went dead, leaving only the ringing in my ears, the whisper of claws against concrete. That was the night I learned that the rules weren't guidelines, they were lifelines. Breaking them invited horrors I couldn't even name. By now, the nights had grown unbearable. I could no longer sleep properly. The sound of distant footsteps and whispers following me into the day. Every shadow in my apartment seemed to twitch, every stranger's face a potential mimic. The desert behind the gas station wasn't empty. It was alive, patient, and monstrously clever. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, that my mind was fraying from isolation, but the evidence was undeniable. Hank had known, he always knew, and the rules, oh the rules, were the only things keeping me alive. The following evening, I arrived at the station under a blood-orange sunset, the kind that always feels like a warning. I noticed immediately that Pump 4 had been cleaned, scrubbed raw, almost as if someone had tried to erase what had happened there. But I knew better. The black liquid doesn't vanish. It waits. I hesitated, knowing that tonight would test me more than any other shift so far. As soon as I stepped inside, the air thickened. My head spun slightly, like the world had turned viscous, like I was wading through honey. The fan rattled weakly, groaning under some invisible weight. I plugged in track 3 and began the chant softly. It rolled through the empty station, a low hum at first, growing in volume and intensity. Shadows recoiled at the sound, retreating toward the edges of the lot, leaving only an eerie silence in the center. Then I heard it, a scratching at the back door. Soft at first, then growing louder. I could feel the presence before I saw it. The smell hit next. Coppery, sharp, like blood baking in the sun. A figure appeared, humanoid, but wrong in every possible way. Limbs elongated beyond proportion. Skin stretched tight over joints. Head twisted unnaturally. Its eyes, two glowing embers, fixed on me. Calculating, testing. I remembered Hank's instructions. Never under any circumstance look it in the eyes for more than a second. It can read you, can mimic you, can twist what it sees into a weapon. I forced myself to avert my gaze, keeping the boombox between us. Track 3 blasted, chanting louder, almost painfully. The figure hissed, a sound of peeling metal and dry paper. It recoiled, jerking violently, then dissolved into the blackness outside, leaving only a faint stench of sulfur and decay. The payphone rang again. My hand trembled over the receiver. I wanted to throw it across the room, smash it, destroy the line. But I knew. Hank had warned, even ringing, it isn't always safe to ignore. But answering is far worse. The voice this time was not a mimic of anyone I knew. It was pure, alien, echoing in tones that made my skull vibrate. Migs, it hissed. Then laughter, a sound that seemed to crawl into my chest and squeeze. I pressed play harder on track 3, chanting louder, my throat raw. The line went dead. Silence returned, but the dread remained, pressing against the walls, the ceiling, my bones. Hours passed. I could feel it, moving around me, just beyond the edges of the camera's vision. Flickers on the monitors, shapes darting between pumps barely visible, a reflection in the glass, too long, too thin to be human. The isolation was suffocating. By now I knew the patterns. They wait for mistakes, for hesitation, for doubt. And tonight, I had none. I stayed vigilant, chanting when necessary, never allowing myself a moment's lapse. Around 3:30 a.m., something new happened. The black liquid appeared again. But this time, it moved differently. Not just a puddle, not just a flowing mass. It climbed, twisted, rising from the concrete, forming a shape, a humanoid, grotesque, with features that were almost familiar. My stomach turned. It wasn't just testing me anymore. It was learning, adapting. I could feel the intelligence behind the movements, the malice. I stayed calm, my eyes averted, chanting the words, feeling them burn my throat. Slowly, it dissolved back into the floor, leaving behind a heat that seared my palms through the counter. The air shifted again. A shadow moved along the ceiling, impossible, crawling like a spider. I could hear faint whispers, fragmented words, memories not mine. It mocked me, weaving my past, my fears, into a tapestry of dread. I wanted to run, to scream, but I knew that movement could be fatal. The third rule: never leave the station during the night shift. Not even if you think you are safe. Outside, they are free. And outside is where they hunt. I stayed, chanting, watching, waiting. And then came the sound that froze my blood. Soft, deliberate footsteps on the roof. Slow, precise, heavy. Something was walking above me, just out of reach. I couldn't see it. I couldn't even hear it properly over the chant. But I could feel the weight, the presence, the intent. My mind raced through every story I had read, every warning Hank had whispered. Nothing prepared me for this. Hours dragged. The desert beyond remained a flat black expanse, empty yet alive. At 5 a.m., the sun crested the horizon. Dawn. Everything changed. The air lightened, the oppressive weight lifted, shadows shrank back. The black liquid evaporated from pump 4. The scratching stopped. The presence on the roof vanished. I allowed myself to exhale, shakily, fully aware that this temporary relief was not freedom. It was only another day survived. Hank arrived at 6 a.m., as always. He didn't ask questions. He merely nodded at me, eyes unreadable. "You made it," he said. His tone was casual, but I knew the underlying weight. The desert was patient. The creatures, the shadows, the whispers, they didn't sleep forever. They would return. I had survived another night. But survival came with costs. My mind, my body, my very soul felt frayed. I was alive, yes, but no longer human in the ways I had once believed. Over the following weeks, the pattern continued. I learned to anticipate the calls, the movements, the black liquid, the shadows. I developed a rhythm, a fragile equilibrium. Track 3 became my lifeline, the chant, my mantra. I kept careful notes, documenting each anomaly, each mimic, each whisper. I tried to prepare myself to understand the rules more deeply. But the deeper I went, the more I realized one terrifying truth. The rules are not just survival. They are the only barrier between me and being consumed entirely. One night, braver or perhaps more foolish than usual, I tested the limits. I left the safety of the booth, moving toward pump 4 during the hour of maximum activity. The shadow paused, watching, recognizing my deviation. The black liquid rose in a spiral, forming shapes that mirrored my deepest fears. My brother, my parents, my friends, all twisted, screaming, reaching toward me. I held track 3 in my hands, chanting like a man possessed. The shape screamed back, then dissipated. My chest heaved. I knew then that curiosity was a dangerous game. Knowledge came at a price. And finally, the night came when I realized the last unspoken rule. Do not ever feel invincible. The Skinwalkers, the desert, Hank's warnings. They were not tests of courage, but tests of humility. Tonight, a new presence arrived. Taller, darker, more intelligent. The air itself seemed to warp around it. It whispered, not my name, but something older, something that sounded like the desert itself speaking. I understood in that moment that survival was temporary. Knowledge is never free, and the creatures are patient beyond imagination. I sit now, writing this, knowing it may be the last time I write freely. I record every pattern, every whisper, every black shape, so that if someone else ends up in coyote fuel and go, they may have some guidance. The rules: do not sell to them, do not answer their calls, never leave the station, and always, always chant. Life and sanity hang by a thread, one thread that can snap at any moment. The desert waits, the night will come again, the skinwalkers will return, and one day the rules may not be enough.